Hey, this is CB Ahern. I want to talk about the UN Migration Compact again, and this time in a little more detail and with a little more of my own personal point of view on the matter. First of all, the day quickly approaches and still the Irish mainstream media have not touched this. It's a similar story with the UK and all across the world. It's like there is an intentional media blackout. How closely are media organizations working with our governments? We can never really tell, because that's all happening behind closed doors, as veiled conspiracies generally do. And, well, we, the people, are once again left in the dark, while we are being screwed over by conniving dirtbags operating behind our backs. So, as you can tell today, I'm a little more bothered about this deal as the date approaches where it's going to be signed on our behalf. Really? Yeah, on our behalf. Except we're not told about it. Except our opinion doesn't matter. And these pieces of legislation are going to be forced through whether we like it or not. And that is a huge problem. And I hope other people feel similarly. Well, that is, those who actually know about the Act, because most of us are in the dark in a number of ways. I was out in Dublin last week trying to engage people, just general members of the population, to talk about this Act. Not one of them knew about it without me telling them. Not one. I mean, that just says it all, doesn't it? There is a piece of legislation to be signed on the behalf of these people. They know absolutely nothing about it, and it will affect not just their lives, but the lives of future generations. And it's not something that is being voted on. It is not something that you can even talk about. I mean, some of the people I tried to talk to about the Act started getting weird with me, like I was doing something wrong. Or maybe it's just that they're too afraid, and when they feel that you're trying to bring up a touchy subject, they're so worried that they might say the wrong thing that they just run away. They cut the conversation short and they run away, or else they start posturing and virtue signaling and disagreeing with you, like is so often the case. But things are getting real here, folks. Tyranny encroaches, and we can't just ignore it any longer. Seriously, things are getting bad. Okay, I understand. You've got jobs, you've got families, you've got shit to do besides. But that's not an excuse to leave the world burned down in front of you. To have your country stolen out from under you, you don't have any excuses good enough to allow that to happen. You do not have any excuses good enough to be complicit in the destruction of your culture. And if you think you do, you're a fool. So, anyway, on that cheerful note, I just want to get into a little more about what the Act will actually aim to achieve. I won't say it will achieve it, because it's not going to be a piece of legislation that will have the force of law. It's just guidelines for future, I don't know, more local, more concrete pieces of legislation that will be written up and enforced by our illegitimate governments all across Europe, the Western world, and the world generally, because this is not just EU fuckery this time. This is the UN. So, yeah, there are a lot more countries who are going to eventually be subject to the guidelines that the UN put into place, because, let's face it, the UN is built by powerful players, and they are very much affecting the development of the culture of planet Earth. And when we don't do anything to counter that, well, we're getting fucked. So it's about time that people get a little more serious and start trying a little harder at least to actually try to affect change on all the injustice that is being done to us. So what would it mean to criminalize anti-migrant speech? Or to criminalize the coverage of it on media institutions and media stations like is proposed in the Migrant Compact? I mean, that's just ghastly. I mean, think about it. Can you not just see that we are entering an era of thought crime? This censorship is appalling, and it is growing and growing and growing by the day. We live in the EU, or I live in the EU, and many of the people who will be watching this and listening to this also live in the EU, and we have that collection of political demons, I guess we could call them, trying as best they can to control our ability to speak of issues, to control our ability to spread information and thus understanding, and even in making memes, even in sending links. There's going to be a link tax. Memes are going to be illegal, or particular types of memes, they're going to be subject to copyright, and so it's copyright infringement to use memes. I mean, dear God, what is happening to the world? And more so, why are people not burning down fucking buildings in outrage? Oh, don't get too serious with me. I'm kidding in a way. Well, I guess I'm speaking ironically. I'm speaking ironically in that, yeah, I'm joking. I'm not calling for anyone to burn anything down, but at the same time, I'm like, how the fuck are people losing their minds about this? Why are people putting up with this? Or is it that they're just choosing to ignore what's happening because they can benefit from that? They can keep taking their corporate wage from the multinationals who are pushing such legislation, and they can act like it doesn't have anything to do with them because they agree with the dominant cultural narratives. But really, like, that's no excuse. Tyranny is instituting itself. Thought crime is materializing into reality when it was previously fiction. We cannot just fucking hang around thinking about how bad it is, talking about how bad it is. Okay, yeah, I guess talking helps. I guess thinking about it helps because at least you know about it. But really, we refrain from speaking boldly about such issues to people who are not receptive about them. I know it. Like, I mean, even myself, when I'm outside of my echo chamber, when I'm trying to talk to people, I'm generally not trying to piss them off. But at the same time, when you bring up a lot of these issues, you're just going to piss people off just by bringing them up because they don't want to talk about them, because they're afraid to have a point of view. They're afraid to say anything outside the designated limits of what is allowed to be thought or said. And when you bring it up with people, they get touchy because, one, they don't want to appear like an idiot. Two, they don't want to appear like a coward. And three, and most importantly, they don't want to get themselves in trouble with what they might have to say about these topics and subjects. So, you know, you're caught between a rock and a hard place, and there are a number of ways in which you bringing up uncomfortable issues like the UN Migration Pact will piss people off. There are a variety of ways that people will react negatively to this, and I understand it, but the reasons they are reacting negatively to this is because they're so self-interested and they are so disingenuous, and then they get mad at you for putting them in a difficult position where they want to comment on it, but at the same time they don't want to get themselves into trouble by what they might have to say, and they don't understand the issue well enough to carefully skirt the border between what is okay to say and what is not okay to say. So, Yeah, well, it's not my fault for bringing it up, okay? Really, it's not. And if you're getting pissed off at me because I bring up something that you don't know how to talk about without coming off like an idiot, a coward, or prejudiced, then you need to do some reading, you need to do some thinking, you need to figure shit out because things are getting worse and worse and you are responsible. You have to have a hand in changing it from how it is now to some situation that is more workable, or else we are all fucking doomed.